This movie fan is ranking every cinematic Spider-Man. What's up guys, my name's Hayden Murphy and welcome to my YouTube channel. With the recent release of Spider-Man Brand New Day, I thought it fitting to rank all of the theatrically released Spider-Man movies. Now, I love Spider-Man as a character. He's not my favorite superhero, but what I love the most about him is how relatable he is. And because we have such great stories told with him as the main character, it becomes incredibly difficult to rank these films against each other. I love every one of these movies, except maybe one. But if you were to show like my ranking in like a dash like next to each other, it would almost look like a straight line because they are like incrementally close in terms of how much I love these movies. That this list is going to come across as very nitpicky. Again, I'm going to highlight what I love about the movies, but I'm going to have to focus on the reason why I have them below other rankings. And just because I rank a movie lower on the list doesn't mean I hate it. You might have it higher on your list, and that's totally fine. Every single movie hits us differently, and because of that, you might have a film that is your favorite and it's my least favorite, and vice versa, and that's totally okay. In fact, I want to know what your list is, so please, before I get into the meat of this video, let me know what your list is, because I want to know why you rank it, what's your favorite, what's your least favorite, because it's fun to dialogue and engage in conversation about movies. I just have one more quick thing to say before I get into the list. I know, I'm sorry, I will get to it, but there are going to be some Spidey-sized spoilers ahead for every one of these movies. I'm not going to divulge into every little tiny detail, but if you have not seen any of these films, don't fret, you can still watch this video because I am going to have chapters and it will allow you to at least see which movie I rank at like the number spot, and then you can just skip ahead to the next one if you haven't seen it, primarily for Brand New Day, because I understand not everyone's seen that movie, although the box office would tell us differently. Dollar bills, y'all. But all that out of the way, I'm warning you right now, again, there are Spidey-sized spoilers ahead. Coming in at number 11 is The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Yeah, so this might be the only movie on this list that I just genuinely do not love. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great moments in this movie, but great moments does not make a great movie. Whoa. That being said, the visuals of this movie are amazing. I mean, we have literally probably some of the best visuals of any Spider-Man movie in Andrew Garfield's films. And this film does that in a tremendous way with several of the action scenes. Especially you get those first-person POV shots. The one that comes to my mind is the battle with him against Electro, where he's going through and just, you know, all the electricity is happening and Electro is appearing. And that fight scene is a good segue to get into the major problem for me with this movie. The villains of this movie are laughable, sometimes even goofy. I mean, I just cannot take them seriously because of their physical appearance and just the way the whole performance happened. Jamie Foxx is a talent amongst talents. I mean, he is such a great actor. I love everything he's in. But it does not work in this movie. You cannot convince me that Jamie Foxx is a washed-up, nerdy, unattractive loser from the beginning anyways. But not then on top of that, they decide to paint him all blue, and it looks ridiculous. He does not look good in any way, shape, or form. He's not menacing or scary or anything like that, and his whole story arc is ridiculous. Case in point, they fix a lot of that issue with the fact that he shows up in No Way Home because he looks 10 times better. Then you have their version of Green Goblin, which again, guys, I mean, come on. We had such a great version already with the Green Goblin, more on that later, but you give us this as the Green Goblin, he looks like a mutated freak, and maybe that's what you were going for, but it just looks ridiculous, like it's a clown show or something. This movie was too focused on setting up the Sinister Six to where if they would have minimized what they were trying to set up later and just focused on producing a great film in this movie, then I wouldn't have as big of a problem with it. Because even with those two guys, not only that, but you also have the Rhino of Paul Giamatti being in that. And look, I love Paul Giamatti, but this inclusion of him as the Rhino just, again, did not work everything in here was just terrible. And if Sony would have focused more on just making this movie as good and as great as it could possibly be, rather than worrying about trying to set up some future stuff, that's where they went wrong. That being said, amidst all of that, this movie delivers the most shocking moment of any Spider-Man movie ever. I was wondering, as we're going through the film, I'm like, man, they are taking a lot of time, emphasizing this relationship with him and Gwen Stacy. Not that that's bad or anything, but, like, this film had a lot to juggle, and we're taking a lot of time, and it just feels different. Well, I was getting lulled to sleep and bored near the end of the film, to where finally, when that shot happens, again, hearkening back to the visuals of this movie, that whole entire clock tower sequence is genuinely stunning and amazing. The slow motion scenes, the shots, all of it. But the moment you see that pop, snap, and she hits the ground, genuine shock on my face, followed by an amazing, beautiful performance of Andrew Garfield with that. I mean, it was just stunning. It's really a shame that we didn't get to see him come back in a third movie, because I would have liked to explore, him with that grief a little bit longer, because it just happened so late in the film. And I don't know how many of you guys know this, but there's actually an alternate ending for this movie that, in my opinion, was far superior to the ending that we got. I don't know if they could just tell while they were making this movie that the writing was on the wall and it was just not a good film, and they decided to just put a little capper on this film because they were anticipating maybe we'll reboot it, and and then that's really what happened. They ended up going into the MCU anyways. But the alternate ending of this movie involved his dad showing up at the gravesite of Gwen Stacy, and you have the revelation that his dad's actually alive. What? That was dramatically different than the one we got, and it would have served a far better ending, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, it was kind of cool to see Spidey twist around and throw the sewer cover at Rhino. Again, both of his films end with beautiful, amazing shots of Spider-Man. But I think it would have garnered a lot more attention and intrigue to bring a potential third Andrew Garfield movie. But you get what you get, you don't throw a fit, or at least in my case, you do throw a fit, and you make a YouTube video about it and post it all over the internet. Coming in at number 10 is Spider-Man 3. So, again, we already got past the movie that I genuinely do not like. This film I actually do like. However, it's at the bottom of the list because this movie, just like the previous one had a villain-sized problem, this movie has a Venom-sized problem. Yeah, this movie took away from what was set up so great of a redemptive/revenge arc for Harry, that we had too much time focused on the Venom subplot. And that's notable because while they introduced a great villain like Sandman, and we already had this introduced villain from a 2-movie arc of Harry, you just throw in and shoehorn Venom in for no apparent reason other than the fact that the studio wanted to do it. That is a known fact that Sam Raimi did not want to have Venom in this movie, and the studio made him and forced him to do it. And that's why when you watch this film, it does not feel as organic in the narrative as everything else does. It does quite legitimately feel forced into the movie. And unfortunately, because of that, just about everything with Venom just does not work. I mean, everything from the whole Dark Toby sequence with his, his dark hair and how he's just, we do the dancing scene. Although, regardless of how much I think it takes away from the movie, you have to admit, did we lose with that? Because we got a lot of great memes from those dancing scenes, right? I mean, come on. I love watching it every now and again. I think it's hilarious. But we get that, and then also them choosing Topher Grace to play Eddie Brock. Again, I'm sorry. You just cannot convince me that he was the right choice to be in that. There's a lot of things that didn't work with it, and it took away from the Harry arc and the Sandman, which I believe is still a great villain. While the movie overall was really good for me, this held this movie back from being great. Coming in at number 9 is Across the Spider-Verse. So while I still love this movie, the biggest problem for this film for me is that it tried to recreate a lot of what the first movie did and just wasn't as successful in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot to love here. I do love the change up of animation styles that they tried to mess with or mix up here, particularly with that with Spider-Gwen, with the watercolor style and everything, and they fit the animation style to the different types of characters. However, that is also a problem for me, is the inclusion of so many characters. This film is way too dense. You already had the previous supporting cast coming back, which got minimized roles because of the introduction of even more characters. But in my opinion, they just were not as like entertaining and memorable as that original supporting cast. And another problem for me is that like the majority of them were just so difficult to understand. I could not understand a single word that Spider-Punk was saying, or Spider-Man India was very difficult, although not as difficult as Spider-Punk. However, when I finally got around to watching this movie at home with captions on, it was more enjoyable because I could understand what they were actually saying. That being said, I do think the villain of this movie was not as engaging as, like, Kingpin. Now, I'm primarily thinking of Spider-Man 2099 because, again, I know Spot is the quote-unquote villain, but I believe that, like, Spider-Man 2099 was more of an antagonistic force for him, and it kind of shared similar backstory with Kingpin in the sense that, like, you know, he wants his family back and everything. I thought it was interesting that they took such an obscure character like the Spot and made him this, you know, bigger villain than, you know, what he really is, but we're not fully, you know, we've not fully seen his story arc, so there's more to come on that. And that's also reminiscent of the entire problem with the movie, is it doesn't feel like a complete movie. I mean, you know, we don't get a completion of a story arc for the majority of the characters in this film, and while it ended on such a great cliffhanger, and I'm excited to see where they go with it, it's just, you know, all the build-up and all that stuff, it just didn't have a satisfying enough of a payoff for me. That being said, that chase sequence near the end of the movie when all the different Spider-Men, women, creatures, spider people, we'll just go with spider people, when all of them are chasing him, I mean, that was just so amazing. Again, there's so much to love from this movie, but for those little things, for me, it's not as high up on the list because of how much there is to unpack in this movie. Coming in at number 8 is The Amazing Spider-Man. So, I love Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. That being said, I don't think we've had a bad Spider-Man. I know a lot of people rank Andrew Garfield as their least favorite Spider-Man. I don't know if I would. I love him. I think he is so unique and different from the other two because, in my opinion, he's like the cool, witty Spider-Man. He's got a skateboard, and yes, he's nerdy. Yes, he does cheesy little things, but he has such a great personality. You can't help but love him, and it's just so amazing to see it reflect on the screen. And I think that also reflects his personality as Spider-Man even in another film, which I'll speak on later. But in this movie in general, even just the way they portrayed Spider-Man, in my opinion, he's like the closest spider-looking in his mannerisms and the way he moves. I mean, I think of that sequence when he's fighting the lizard in the high school, and he is just crawling all around him, spinning that web all around him and everything. Again, some of the best visuals was of web-swinging shots, of the first-person POV shots of him, even to that last shot of the movie. I mean, I want to pause it and just make that a poster. It's so beautiful. Also, what makes this movie really great is the relationship between him and Gwen Stacy. I believe that this relationship between Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy is the best relationship put on screen in any Spider-Man movies we've gotten yet. Even more than, yes, Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst and Tom Holland and Zendaya. I understand they're married. I get that. But I believe that Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone were able to deliver a far better on-screen relationship than any of them so far. I don't know what that says about Tom and Zendaya's marriage, but, you know.
Don't you ever say that.
There was also an element to this movie that no other Spider-Man movies have given us, and that was the mystery behind his parents and their disappearance. I mean, everything revolving around that just added a whole nother layer and another depth to this Spider-Man origin story that I think is severely lacking in other films. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we need to have that with every single Spider-Man movie, but I really like where they were going with it. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see that to completion, and I really wish we could have, because that was such an intriguing part of his story that I really enjoyed that. Is it a perfect movie? No. Is it even the best origin story of Spider-Man? No. But you can't help but enjoy yourself while you watch this film because it is just so great, and there's so many great things and moments to love from this film. Coming in at number 7 is No Way Home. I think this movie gave us the best moments of any Tom Holland movie ever. But again, great moments doesn't make this movie better than others just because it has the best moments of his films. This movie was able to highlight how great previous Spider-Man villains were in Tobey's universe and also fix some of the issues with Andrew Garfield's villains. Not only that, but it was able to give us all 3 live-action Spider-Man in one single film. It is kind of bothersome to a certain degree because the one thing I would complain about Tom Holland's movies is there's so many elements in each one of them that, in my opinion, distract and take away from the Spider-Man character overall. To where it's like, okay, yes, this is his movie, but also it's like he is having to include other Spider-Man and other villains that are not even from his original franchise or universe, per se. But I don't care about any of that, because when you show me 3 Spider-Man fighting on screen, all the multiple Spider-Man villains that we've seen up to this point, it is just, mwah, chef's kiss. That being said, what I was referencing earlier with Andrew Garfield, this film was able to give us some bit of closure. Whether or not they come back or not, we'll have to see in Doomsday or Secret Wars. But it was able to give us some form of closure for both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. To where it's like, okay, you know, Spider-Man 3 was not the most welcome or received film of Tobey Maguire's movies, and Amazing Spider-Man 2 definitely wasn't. But we didn't really get as much of a closure, particularly for Andrew Garfield. And that scene when they're all just talking and hanging out, again, the highlight for me was Andrew Garfield. You cannot help but love this dude. He is just so witty and so cool and amazing. But then they single-handedly gave him the best redemptive arc in a movie that's not even his own Spider-Man movie, when he saves MJ off of the building, and it comes full circle to where he was able to save Tom Holland's MJ, where he failed to save his own Gwen Stacy. And I think Tom Holland's Spider-Man needs to have a shrine of Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man at some point in these movies, because if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be having any other future stuff with him and MJ, okay? What I really loved about this movie as well is that while it gave us the conclusion of our previous 2 Spider-Man, it also became the origin for our current Spider-Man to be the Spider-Man we know to be. Where a lot of criticism and complaints have been thrown at Tom Holland's movies, a lot of them coming from me as well, that he doesn't really feel like Spider-Man. He's Iron Man Jr. He's always living in the shadow of someone else. He didn't make his own suit. He's not living on his own. He didn't have Uncle Ben die, yada, yada, yada. I could go on and on and on. And this movie helped remedy a lot of that. And he got his own Uncle Ben moment with Aunt May dying. Eventually, by the end of the movie, no one remembering him and him having to go off on his own, and the end of the movie being him in an apartment building, having made his own Spider-Man suit and everything, you realize that we've been witnessing the origin of him becoming Spider-Man as we know and love him. And I really appreciate that in this movie. However, the reason why I knock it down a little bit is Tom Holland's Spider-Man does a lot of irresponsible things, and I get it, he's supposed to be like a little bit younger somewhat than the other 2, even though the other 2 technically were in high school for a good chunk of some of their movies. But he does a lot of irresponsible things, egregious irresponsible things. And one of the biggest ones in this movie is, I don't care how you spin it, but him choosing to put the fate of the multiverse at risk, all for the sake of potentially seeing some good in some bad guys and villains. You can't spin it any other way than that is just super ultra irresponsible on his part. And I get it, they needed a plot device and a way to go in to where we need this to happen. So, you know, can we kind of just forget it and ignore it, whatever. But it is a huge knock for me to where it's like, come on guys, you know, like, we could have found another way to make this happen still and be cool without knocking our own Spider-Man for being super irresponsible. But whatever, we got some really cool shots. And we got them to be able to recreate the iconic meme or shot from the Spider-Man TV show where they're all pointing at each other. So I say no harm, no foul, right? Except I'm still complaining about it. Coming in at number 6 is Far From Home. This movie is such a wonderful breath of fresh air. You take him out of the New York element and you put him in other cities and environments to see him interact as Spider-Man. I loved it for that alone and all the visuals that come along with it. The biggest problem with the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies is, if you think about it, we've really only gotten 2 major villains that originated from Spider-Man's universe or Tom Holland's universe that are quote-unquote Spider-Man villains. One being in Spider-Man Homecoming and then the other one being in this movie as Mysterio. And I think Jake Gyllenhaal killed it as Mysterio. Yes, I get it. It's very different from the Mysterio probably in the comics, okay? I've not read that many comics, okay? So just don't kill me on that.
Worst episode ever.
But the whole way that they envision this character as using the drones for his illusions and everything like that, and he is a illusion of a superhero. He's a fake superhero.
You are fake news.
And you get some really great acting scenes from Jake Gyllenhaal as a result of that. Not only that, but I think Tom Holland's films handle comedy the best out of any of the Spider-Man movies, and this movie has tons of it. I'm sorry, but the Night Monkey gag going over and over again, I don't care if you got tired of it. I thought it was hilarious and loved it. It was so great. However, again, I got to make this nitpick. He does a pretty egregious, irresponsible act in this movie by handing over this massive security system that was gifted to him by Tony Stark that has the ability to wipe out whole cities, essentially, and he just gives it to the first hero that's near him. Wouldn't it have made sense for him to just give that to Nick Fury? But whatever, I digress. Again, they needed it to happen for the plot, but why do we need to make things happen in a plot at the expense of our heroes making irresponsible decisions? I get it, he's a teenager, whatever. Okay, come at me, bro.
Come at me, bro! Nah, I'm good.
That being said, what works really well for the Tom Holland movies, and what I think makes people come back in droves for the next film of each of his movies, is they each have this great last little bit of a cliffhanger that makes you end on a moment that you're like, oh crap, I gotta see what happens next. This movie, I think, delivers the best one, that being that J. Jonah Jameson appears on the screen, and then it is the last known clip of Mysterio, and the twist of Mysterio getting the last laugh. Even in his death, he's the victor. And he reveals to the world that he is Peter Parker. And the ending of that movie where you're just like, oh crap, what's going to happen? It was such a great way to end the film that makes you want to come back for more. And some of the best visuals are in this movie, particularly when Mysterio does a lot of his illusion sequences. Just really great things to work with that we haven't seen in any other Spider-Man movie previously. Coming in at number 5 is Brand New Day. Now, I'm not going to go as in-depth on this entry because I literally just released not that long ago a 30-minute video of a spoiler review for this film. So if you want to know my full in-depth thoughts of this movie, it is the most recent movie to be released. You can go watch that after this video. All I'll say is the reason why this movie is not higher on the list. I've had a lot of friends tell me that this is their favorite Spider-Man movie of all time. I don't know if I can say that yet. And honestly, this movie might drop down more. It could go up more. I don't know. But the biggest problem of this movie for me is this movie has a massive Jean Grey problem, aka their villain. They take a lot of time setting up a protagonist in the future, but by making that protagonist do a lot of malicious evil things. So I'm a little conflicted because I think what could have made this movie really great is if we had an OG Spider-Man villain. He has one of the best rogues galleries of any superhero, and it was really unfortunate because it's like, yes, we got Scorpion, but he was just a puppet for Jean Grey. That being said, there's so many great things to love from this movie. The Punisher dynamic, the amazing visuals, some of the best web-swinging shots of any Tom Holland movie probably ever. Very unique angles and shots we've never seen before in a Spider-Man movie. He got the organic webbing, aka thank you, Toby. Again, really great emotional stakes and depth in this movie. This movie fixed a lot of my problems with Tom Holland. Again, he felt the most like Peter Parker and Spider-Man in this movie than any of his previous films. And I love the way this movie ended, but it also frustrated me a little bit because it's like, yes, we've got the handshake, we got the recognition. Hopefully, I believe he is remembering his past life with Peter, but, we didn't get as much with Ned and MJ as I liked. There's lots of great things, but again, I'm not going to go as in-depth with it because I think this movie is super great, really amazing, lots of beautiful, amazing things in this movie. It's just that Jean Grey of it all is what keeps it from being higher on this list. Coming in at number 4 is Spider-Man Homecoming. Yeah, this is still my favorite Tom Holland Spider-Man movie to date. What this movie does so great that the following movies, I think, again, is just a nitpick of, is while he does have some irresponsible actions being taken by him in this movie, none of them are egregious on the level of like him just too bothered to worry with a security system and hand it over to whoever he can, or not care enough about the fate of the multiverse to try to fix some villains. He genuinely, every single action he takes in this movie genuinely is because he is trying to help people. He's trying to be better. He wants to live up to the heroes that he has been surrounded by and he looks up to. And he keeps being told, you're being irresponsible. You can't help people. You need to just stay put and stay in your place. And he can't be satisfied with that because he wants to help people. He wants to be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He doesn't want to sit on the sidelines anymore. And so, yeah, does he do some irresponsible things because of that? Yeah, okay, some things happen, but it's all because he's genuinely trying to do good and help other people. This movie has such a great villain with Michael Keaton playing the Vulture. Again, nice little spin off of like what they did with his character in here. We've only gotten 2 villains that like originated from Spider-Man's rogues galleries in Tom Holland's films, being the Vulture and Mysterio. And I think it worked tremendously in this movie that, in my opinion, delivered one of the most shocking, actually it is the most shocking moment of any of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, and it all revolves around just a door being opened. When Peter Parker goes to his date's house to pick her up for Homecoming, I was about to say prom, but then I realized the movie's called Homecoming, so it couldn't be Spider-Man Prom. But he goes to pick her up from Homecoming, and then just immediately, the moment that door opens, everyone in the theater gasped, goes to dead silence, and you feel the tension. It is so palpable in that car ride when he picks up the gun and he puts 2 and 2 together. Beautiful, wonderful acting from Michael Keaton and from Tom Holland as well. And it is like so expertly well set up that you don't even realize how they did it until it happens, and I loved it. This movie has the best balance of comedy of any of the Tom Holland films, in my opinion. And I think so much of it revolves around his relationship with Ned. The Tom Holland movies were able to give us such a great dynamic between him and his best friend Ned that the other previous Spider-Man franchises just were never able to give us. And it is so refreshing and so great. It's like, yes, I know Tobey had Harry Osborn, but they were just not as deep in their relationship as Tom Holland is with Ned, and I love it. So much of what works in this movie comes from his relationship with Ned, to the point where my favorite character of the Tom Holland movies is Ned himself. I mean, even from the moment when he finds out that he's Spider-Man, he drops the Lego Death Star, even to the scene where they're just talking and he's got the Spider-Man mask on him. You can't help but love this dude. I mean, we've got to save Ned at all costs. If Ned dies, I will be distraught. I would rather have MJ die than have Ned die. That's how much I love this dude. You cannot get rid of the guy in the chair. You might be able to take the guy out of the chair, but you can't take the chair out of the guy.
Guy in the chair.
And now we're rounding out the list with my top 3 entries of all the Spider-Man movies. And I think it's fitting to put them in the categories of how I would also rank my Spider-Man actors as well. Again, I think we've gotten all great Spider-Man actors, so keep that in mind as well. But let's call this one the Tom Holland entry. At number 3, we have Into the Spider-Verse. Into the Spider-Verse, introducing the concept of the Spider-Verse, was able to deliver us such a great multiverse movie that this movie handled the multiverse better than the entire multiverse saga of the MCU. There, I said it, okay? To the point where I don't think we would have even gotten No Way Home in the multiverse saga if it wasn't for the success of this movie and how well received it was. This movie is the most beautiful Spider-Man film because there's so much to feast on here. What they were able to do with the animation style is, not to put it lightly, like historical. It changed cinema because we are still seeing its impact today on other animated films as well. They were able to create such a unique, visual, vibrant animation style that changes with each character to the point where we are seeing several other films that try to emulate that with its success, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie we had gotten. There's a new film coming out this year called Forgotten Island that, in my opinion, emulates a lot of that different type of animation, unique style of that film. This movie is the first film that I believe I could say genuinely makes you feel like you are watching an actual comic book come to life. And with the animation style being so unique to each character, it really highlights the importance of each of those Spider-Man supporting cast members. And while we do get a lot of Spider people in this movie, what makes it so great is that, yes, they are there to help support the primary protagonist. They are not a big distraction from the main story arc of our main person being Miles Morales. And what really sets Miles Morales apart from Peter Parker is that he has what Peter Parker never had, and that is his own parents. He has that backbone, that structure of emotional support, that even though he feels like they are not supportive enough for him and he can't go to, we can recognize as the audience that they really do love and care for him. Not only that, but the emotional support he gets from his own uncle, and how they weave that into the thread and narrative of everything with him being the Prowler. It is so more emotional, and you are so much more invested in how that plays out than just any other random villain. And he's not even the major bad guy. It was so brilliantly put up and set up. I loved it. It was amazing. Coming in at number 2, or we could call the Andrew Garfield level, I hope this doesn't get too confusing, is the OG original Spider-Man. What makes this movie so great is not only can we thank this film for all the future Spider-Man movies we were to get from it, but I also think we can thank this film for being responsible for all the comic book movies we've come to get. I know X-Men was the origin of like people actually starting to realize, oh man, comic book movies can be more than just cheesiness and campiness. And it really started to change the tide. So I know X-Men was there, but hand in hand with X-Men was this Spider-Man movie. And I think with the both franchises happening simultaneously, we would not have superhero movies, aka the MCU, or DCU for that matter. We would not have these movies be as big of a pop culture phenomenon as they are if it wasn't for these films originating all of that. There are so many amazing cinematic shots in this movie. There's too many to even count. The only one I can really think of off the top of my head is the like upside down kissing scene. Okay, if you have Shrek reenacting that sequence from your movie, then you know you have cinematic gold, okay? That's all I'll say. I'm not acting like Shrek is the end-all be-all sign of amazing shots in a movie, but I mean, maybe it is.
Shrek is love, I say. Shrek is life.
The beauty of all the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies is they just feel epic. There's an epicness to it, from the music, to the visuals, to the story, to the emotional arcs, the villains, the fight scenes, everything about these movies just feel like it is delivering it to you on an epic scale, even though it's just happening in New York City. And for that reason, I love it. The highlight of this movie is Green Goblin. Willem Dafoe is the Green Goblin. He delivers such a great performance as the Green Goblin that not only was he the standout performance of this movie, but he's also a standout performance of No Way Home. I mean, if you're so good that you are not just the villain of your own Spider-Man franchise, but of another Spider-Man's franchise, there's something to be said about that. I would equate it to where, like, he is the Joker of this franchise.
Why so serious?
And even still, as great as he is, he's still not even my favorite villain to come from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. But that's just how beautiful and great he does in this role, that my son, when I played this movie for him, he was genuinely scared out of his mind of Willem Dafoe's scenes, and that's not even with him in the costume. In my opinion, I think he's scarier outside of the Green Goblin costume than he is in it. His bone structure, his eyes, his facial, features, everything about this dude is amazing. Even to the sequences where he's talking to himself. It literally is like the Smeagol Gollum sequences of Lord of the Rings.
I'm not listening.
You're a liar.
No.
Also, I can't mention the Green Goblin without mentioning this scene.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
I mean, where would we be without all the memes that originated from this line itself? I mean, really, come on. And if you haven't been able to guess already, then you know, based off of my ranking of not just the movies, but the Spider-Man as well, coming in with the Tobey Maguire level is Spider-Man 2. This is, hands down, the best Spider-Man movie ever made. It's not only just the best Spider-Man movie, this is one of my favorite superhero movies ever. This movie has stood the test of time and stuck with me since I was a little kid when I saw it growing up. This film delivers the best emotional arc of Spider-Man to date. It perfectly shows the struggle of the balance between him trying to balance his life as Spider-Man and Peter Parker. Yes, even more than Brand New Day, okay? Don't hate on me, it's just the truth.
You can't handle the truth!
It has the greatest plot threads, the greatest emotional moments, the greatest fight scenes, and culminating with the greatest villain. Doc Ock is such a wonderful villain in this movie because you love him from the get-go and you don't want to see him be bad. It's not his fault he's bad, okay? The tentacles made him do it. But it makes his arc so amazing that by the time you reach the end of the film and he comes to his wits and he is willing to sacrifice his own, not just his own invention, but his self for the sake of New York City, it comes full circle to where Spider-Man was able to stop the villain and make him realize the error of his ways. Yes, I know, he does that with Jean Grey and Spider-Man Brand New Day, whatever, but she's not really a Spider-Man villain.
Shut your mouth when you're talking to me.
Back to this entry though, this film highlights his Peter Parker life just as importantly as they do the Spider-Man aspects of it. I mean, everything from his struggle of just, his rent being due, to not being able to do well in college, failing the class he's in, his emotional relationships, not just with Harry, but also with MJ herself. He's wanting to get with her, but she just can't be with him. He cannot devote his time that is necessary to building a long-lasting relationship. Even his relationship with Aunt May and how he takes on the burdens of Aunt May as well, with her in her financial struggles and her potentially losing her home. It is such an amazing, emotional toil on our main protagonist that you see it eventually culminate into where he just can't take anymore. He has had enough, and it's affecting not just his personal life, but his ability as Spider-Man as well. He's having an existential crisis, a midlife crisis, if you will, a Spidey midlife crisis, okay?
Good guy wins, bad guy loses. Big friggin' surprise.
But it all culminates in him giving it up, saying, I'm not going to be Spidey anymore. I've got to give this up. And he tries to just live his life normally. And then he realizes, I've got to be Spider-Man. I got to do this because no matter what, if I try to, escape Spider-Man for the sake of my own personal life, it's going to come back to get me. It's going to come back to bite me. And it culminates in the best action sequence of any Spider-Man movie to date. I sometimes go back and watch this fight scene on YouTube over and over again. When he has that train fight scene, it was so expertly choreographed and orchestrated, there's not been a single Spider-Man movie to date to be able to emulate that sequence. Because you have the emotional height happening with the visuals and the fight sequence on a constantly moving platform. But then it culminates in a way where you wouldn't think it would. It's not ending in a big knockout blowout fight. He has to stop this train, and it is everything he's doing in his power and his strength to end this train, stop this train from ending these people's lives. And he gives it his all and everything. And because of that, the people of New York City reward him for it handsomely. And it's the best relationship between Spider-Man and New York City that is put on screen to date, because they are willing to do everything to stand in the way of Doc Ock and him, but also to just protect his identity. They're not going to tell everyone, and you believe it, and you love it, and it is just amazing. The arc of Harry in this movie, which while I wasn't as satisfying of a conclusion in Spider-Man 3, was so expertly set up with him ripping the mask off of Spider-Man. I just remember being like, oh crap, what is going to happen? It was such a well set up sequence, and the ending of this movie was so emotionally it's so amazing. I can't even freaking talk because it was so amazing. But the fact that he said, like, I can't choose you. I've got to be Spider-Man. It will bother me that if I'm not. And the fact that MJ decides, you know what? The fact that he is willing to choose being Spider-Man, even over me, tells me the kind of man he is. And she abandons her fiance on her wedding day. And her showing up in that apartment, okay, in her full wedding dress. Again, you can't end this movie any better than that. And she just tells him, go get him, Tiger. And then you have the ending web-swinging scenes. This movie is expertly crafted from start to finish. There is not a single negative thing I can think of this film. I love everything about it. It is so great. Well, there you guys have it. That's my ranking for all the theatrically released Spider-Man movies. What do you guys think, though? Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I want to know your rankings. Let me know if you think I am wrong for putting these movies where they are, or Spider-Man Brand New Day for being too low on the list or too high on the list. I want to know so we can have that dialogue back and forth. I love all of these movies, except maybe for the last one, but maybe that's your favorite. I don't know. If it is, tell me why. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I appreciate you taking the time to do so. If you could do me a favor, drop me a like, share this video with your friends, and go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already, because I love talking all things movies and books, if you can tell. But don't worry, I'm going to get some movies up there at some point. Again, thank you guys for taking time to watch this video, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye.